Om Shri Sai Ram, offering our loving salutations at the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan, Sri Sati Sai Baba. Respected elders, my dear brothers and sisters, it's really warm and welcoming to be back with you again, Sister Lakshmi and I. We're truly thankful to each one of you for putting together this massive webinar, which is super transformative. And I should say the satsang that myself and Sister Lakshmi had was so much inspiring because it just kind of brought out the right thought process in terms of these deeper topics. First, we start with which are, Viveka, Vairagya, and all of those, and then moving on to the Shat Sampathi. So, before we start, we would like to invoke Bhagwan to this. And I'm sure there are 40 people on the chat. I'm assuming he's a 41st unseen member in this chat. And with that being said, it is still an assurance from Bhagwan to invoke him with his own words. Let's hear from Bhagwan himself.
राम राम जय राजा रामा श्यामल कोमल मीठ श्यामा श्यामल कोमल देख श्यामल कोमल देख स्वामी ने मेरे
With this assurance that we are praying and hoping that Bhagwan listens to each and every word of this webinar. And as he said, he does not use his ears, but he listens as Sahasrashi Rusha Purushaha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. He pervades everywhere. With that assurance, let us jump to the second webinar, which is a tall order that we see here. And these are extremely deeper topics. And as Brother Sridhar beautifully introduced, and these are, stepping stones in our Bhagwan's messages, starting with Sama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. And I know over the next several minutes, this may present a good view, but it'll be nice if we can, as Brother Sridhar said, it'll be good for us to self-reflect, not more of, how these topics are, but how does it relate to me personally? It is, if with that angle, if we're able to listen to it, that'll be wonderful. And without any further ado, I would like to ask Sister Lakshmi to proceed on with our session 1 recap on this one.
With utmost humility, gratitude, and love, I offer myself at the divine reverential lotus feet of our beloved omnipresent Lord, Bhagavan Shri Satya Sai Baba. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for all those kind words of introduction. And I thank the leadership, and I'm extremely grateful to Swami and to all of you for giving me an opportunity to be in the satsang with all of you. Like how Brother Subramanian said, as we were going through the preparation for this, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on my own spiritual sadhana and then self-audit my spiritual practices and spiritual behavior. So learning begins from there. Very grateful to all of you for this opportunity. All right, so the first one is, let's do a little recap for all those that were not there and even for our own selves. So I'm sure all of you will agree with me that every aspect of this journey of life has opposites. There's duality. Physical level, hunger, thirst. If it's a summer, hot day, oh, it's too hot. Winter, cold night, oh, it's too cold. At the physical level, at the emotional level, there's pain, there's pleasure, there's joy, there's sorrow. Swinging like a pendulum. Intellectual level, we have those aha moments. Oh, this was easy. Oh, where did that wisdom come from? My goodness, how could I be so dumb and not see through this, right? So sometimes there are these spots, these places in our lives where we feel we are completely in control, adequate, wholesome, Purnamada, Purnamidam. And there are those spots where we feel, oh, so inadequate, so broken, so disappointed, right? So all this brings us to this wonderful question, who am I? Why am I incomplete? Why am I inadequate? And then we begin on this path of existential inquiry. Why am I even existing? So that's where we land on Atma Vichara. And Swami said, all paths will lead to this. Any path you take will converge towards the single question. Why am I here? What am I here for? Who am I? And why do I experience this duality? And then to embark on this path, do we have to go to the mountains? So there was this self-enlightened sage who was living in a beautiful ashram. There was a tourist, there was a visitor passing by, and he said, oh, this ashram looks so beautiful. So he goes inside, meets with this saint. They get into the spiritual conversation, and then the tourist, the visitor, asks the saint, what were you doing before you got this enlightenment? So the saint said, I used to chop wood and carry water. What do you do now? The same thing, chop wood and carry water. And the visitor asked, why are you indulging in these menial activities? You're enlightened, you have so much of knowledge. Then the saint replied, I do the same tasks, but my vision, my perspective has completely changed. I look into every granular detail of the tasks that I do, and I see that oneness and that unity, and that is the beauty of this enlightenment. Isn't that so true? We don't have to renounce careers, relationships, but then the spirituality remains in looking at all these tasks as tools for upliftment, looking at all the jobs as joyful experiences, and whenever we get stressed out in this path, look for some sadhana, some spiritual practices. So with that said, I'm sure you're all familiar with the 8th century mystic, Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara contributed a lot to the literature and the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. Towards the end of his life, his students asked him, you have churned out so many texts and so many commentaries and so many chants and compositions, but then where do we start? How do we get into this? How do we understand these very difficult metaphysical concepts? That's when Adi Shankara coined what is called as Sadhana Chatushtayam, the fourfold path of spiritual practices. And these, to a great extent, he has explained in the 3 texts, Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, and Sadhana Panchakam. And Swami also, the same way, said that the organization is mainly to recognize our inherent divinity. And then he also commented on the Sadhana Chatushtayam in one of the quotes. Can we advance the slide, brother? Where he said, Sadhana Chatushtayam, he talks of the fourfold path. It's called as a fourfold path because one the first path will lead to the second one. So that is why it is fourfold. So the first two we discussed in the previous webinar, Viveka, discernment or discrimination between permanent, impermanent, what is real, what is not real, what is truth, what is not the truth. And then, of course, Vairagya. Vairagya is dispassion, getting detached from what is not truth, what is not permanent, and then what is not real. And today we will embark on this journey of Shat Sampathi. And Swami also has described this Shat Sampathi in a discourse where he talked about all the 6 steps or the 6 paths. And then he also called them as Sampathi, treasures, because once we are well established in Viveka and Vairagya, we will begin our journey to discover these treasures that are there within us. So the first treasure is Shama, or Shama means peace, or Shama means control of the mind. Next slide, please. So here is where Swami talks of Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, and Shraddha, which we have already alluded to. And so we move on to the next slide, where Swami talks of control of the mind. And the first objective or the goal, why should we control the mind, right? We need peace. We need serenity, tranquility. And so that is the reason why the mind has to be controlled once you have well established in Viveka and Vairagya. Once you understand what is permanent and what is not permanent, and then you begin your journey of dispassion or detachment, then obviously you have to have a control on the mind. And that is why most of our spiritual meetings, we end with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We want that peace of mind. Peace at the level of the body, at the level of the subtle body, as well as the causal body. That is why it is repeated 3 times. So mind control is the ability to keep the mind steady, peaceful, free from agitations, and free from being restless. How do we do this? So Swami talks of pranayama. Why pranayama or breathing? What is the relationship between pranayama and then mind control? I'm sure all of you will agree with me that this body is animated. It is enlivened because of the vital energy that is there within, or the prana shakti. That is what animates the body. This prana shakti, this vital energy in its subtle form is the mind, and the gross form is the breath. So controlling the breath will help in regulating the mind. So then, how do we control the breath? Why should we control the breath, and how do we do that? So there are different types of minds. The first mind, in one discourse, Swami said, is the donkey mind. Donkey mind is mudha, very lazy, it's not active at all. Then he talks of the monkey mind. Monkey mind is vikshipta. Vikshipta, like the monkey, it swings from one branch to the one thought to the other thought, quickly moving between the branches. And then you have the butterfly mind. The butterfly sits on a flower for some time and gets the nectar out of it. So the mind is able to focus for a little bit. It is called kshipta. And then, of course, the next one is ekagrata, which is the mind that can stay focused at one point for a larger period of time. And of course, the ultimate is niruddha, where the mind merges with the cosmic mind. And I'm sure you'll all agree with me when I say that when we breathe fast, when we are anxious, when we are nervous, we are excited, we are fearful, we breathe fast. And that obviously indicates a restless and an agitated mind. And then when we breathe slowly, we are obviously calm, peaceful, and very alert. And this also has been recorded and supported by neuroscience, where we produce what are called as beta waves when the mind is very restless. And then we produce what are called as alpha and theta waves when the mind is calm, serene, and peaceful. So our objective should be to be in that state of a peaceful mind. So these are the breathing techniques that we could practice. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, which talks of exhaling and then inhaling alternately, which will connect the right brain with the left brain. So right brain and left brain, you need logical thinking, analytical thinking to be combined with creativity. So that's why these two brains have to be integrated when we function. Then Brahmari is the second type of pranayama, where you inhale deep and exhale with a humming sound. Then the third one is Ujjayi breath, slow, deep breathing, which produces an ocean-like sound. Ma Sharada was a great proponent of these breathing exercises. And then it is said that the yogis, when they master these breathing techniques, they are able to produce 1 to 2 breaths per minute. And on an average, an adult produces about 25 breaths per minute. The second method that Swami talks of is Namasmarana. I'm sure we are all familiar with Namasmarana. Chant your favorite mantra or even just the name of the God. Om Shri Sai Ram, a very simple mantra. What is the purpose of this? Why should we engage in this? To control the mind? Because I'm sure all of you are aware of neuroplasticity. So the more repetitions we make of the mantra, new neural pathways get established. Pathways for attention and focus get strengthened in the mind. And hence, this neuroplasticity is a powerful example for us so that we can strengthen our mind and we can go more towards mind control. And most of these mantras also have what are called as bijaksharas, or they are called as the seed syllables. They are nothing but primordial sound vibrations, or they're the cosmic vibrations which find their harmony within our own body. And that's why we are able to exhibit that mind control through Namasmarana or Japa. Then Swami also has said there are different Japa techniques. Chanting out loud is Vaikari. Then Likhita Japa, writing the name of the Lord, Upamshu, not really speaking the chanting out loud, but with a lip movement. Manasika Japa, completely it is mental chanting. And then Ajapa Japa. So you can reach a stage where the mantra chants by itself from within. And Swami wonderfully integrated both the breathing technique and the japam and gave us soham. He said breathing in is so and then exhaling is the hum technique. All right. So then, be it pranayama or be it mantra japa, most of us beginners or even practitioners, we usually attend to these during the morning times and sometimes before going to the bed. But then that small amount of time is not powerful enough to help us to get through the day or to help us to get through the chaos of the day. What do I mean by this? During the day, we'll get back to our old patterns and old habits of reacting and then thinking. Though during the meditative state, in the morning when we are doing the pranayama or the mantra japa, we feel so elated. We feel on cloud nine. We feel, oh, this is the best session I have ever had. But the minute we get out of that seat, it evaporates. The effect evaporates, and then we get into these worldly activities. So then, if we want these two practices to be transformative, what is the solution? I'm sure you'll all agree with me that we traced letters. The outline of the letters, remember we had those dotted lines which we used to practice for letters and for pictures and all these. So we have to dot the day. So that's how we mastered letters and pictures, through those dotted lines. So dotting the day with pranayama and namasmarana will help us to have these experiences transform our reactory processes and transform our thinking. what will happen if we don't do this? What will happen if we don't embark on this Viveka, Vairagya, and Shat Sampathi? Then ultimately the mind slips into the other six inner enemies like Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. So it is important that at some points of time throughout our daily routine, we dot with pranayama practices or the mantra japa, whatever suits us and based on our daily routine. And this reminds me that when we were in the Balvikas, our teachers taught us different shlokas for different activities of the day. As soon as we got up, when we went to the bath, when we went to school, when we ate food, when we lit the lamp in the evening, before going to bed. So our day was dotted with these practices. So in the same way, whatever suits each one of us, it is important that we carry out these practices throughout our day. With that said, let us now get into sense control.
This is a wonderful seed, sister, because it's the last sentence that you had there, which said, untrained mind, how this can lead to it. So Swami gives utmost importance to senses, right? He says, a horse without reins, a bull unused to the yoke, and a spiritual aspirant whose senses are not mastered are like a river without water. He gives a topmost priority. He says this is the prerequisite if we cannot have control over the senses, which is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And he says it's, these are sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, right? And he says mind is super responsible for processing and interpreting all the information that's received. For example, Swami says this, right? If somebody comes to you and says, you are God, and the same person comes to you and says, you are a dog, the only syllable that's different is God versus Dog. And one time we get super elated, the other time we get super upset. If you look at it technically, it's the sound that travels through the senses, the mind experience these through the senses. And this is exactly what happens, and it processes and it says, yes, now you have to be agitated. Now you have to be more happy, depending on if it's dog or God. And Swami gives a story even further. He says, depending on how these senses operate, it can change your mind one way or the other. He gives a small story, which it affected me quite a bit because this story has, Swami says in the village, there was a huge leader who had an ox. This ox was grazing in the cattle, and there was a small farmer. He also had an ox. So both these oxes, they're just animals. So this farmer was very upset because he wasn't sure if he'll get into trouble if his ox will graze along with the leaders, with the village leader's ox, although they are from a different class, and he felt very afraid that he'll get into trouble. And when the two oxes were grazing in the field, unfortunately, the ox of the village farmer killed the ox of the village leader's ox. And to his fear, he was super nervous. He didn't know what to do. He ran back to his house. He didn't know how to respond to this one. And he said, how am I going to, say this? He went to the village leader and said, village leader, I'm so sorry. In the fear, he changed the sentence. He says, your ox killed my ox, in a wrong way because he was bound by fear. And then the village leader said, you know what? That is what happens. Don't worry about it. These are all animals. You know what will they do? They are all, they don't have the sixth sense. So he gave a huge lecture because his ox killed the village leader's ox. And then this farmer said, I'm so sorry. I told the rivers, it's not your ox. It's my ox who killed your ox. And the same village leader now changed course. And he says, how can that happen? The same person 2 minutes ago, he was giving a long lecture about, this is how it happens when the senses. So this is what Swami says. It's so important how these senses change our mind. And in fact, even scientific way, right? Swami says it's these sensory organs are so important how we treat them rather than the reverse way. Because biologically, every time, if you look at it, a person gets a stimulus through the senses, the brain secretes a neurotransmitter chemical or something. What happens is when the body experiences it, eventually, once you keep feeding more and more and more, it starts to crave more and more. And we're not going to touch upon all of these senses because we might be here for 2-3 hours before we talk about this. But what the key information that Swami talks about is, if one turns away from what he or she wants and withdraws that, the brain does not produce that chemical. For example, if these taste that, there's the taste one, if we kind of withdraw our mind from not giving exactly what the mouth wanted, then the chemical does not seem to produce, and the brain does not produce that chemical at that particular time. In fact, Swami says the attention of the sense organ should be distracted to something else, because suppressing is not going to help, because suppressing will give 100 times more. So in what sister mentioned earlier, because it's a gradual process, so Swami gives an example for this, right? He says a driver of a horse carriage was once carrying a priest, like he's a Christian priest. He was traveling, and the priest noticed that the driver was beating the horse so much constantly. When there was a railway crossing, he was approaching it, and he was beating the horses so rapidly. And then the priest thought, wait a second, he was filled with compassion, and he saw the horse carriage guy, like, why is he beating the horse? They're going fine. And interestingly, the driver said, "See, when the level crossing comes, there were some painted white stones on the either side. When the horses see that, they become so which created fright in them, right? So he says, in order to divert that mind, I keep beating the horse so that their attention will be on my whip and not on those side posters." And Swami says, here, this is exactly how it is. When the attention of any other sense organ, if you divert, distract to something else, it is more desirable than a stronger incentive, because that's when it cannot go crazy. Because if you say, oh, I want to suppress my thought, I'm going to not go to the world, if you do that, it is going to go multifold. So Swami says, even gives an example, right? An envelope. Swami says, when a paper, if you look at it, when you roll a paper and it's folded one way, to remove that, to make it straighten up, what do? Swami says, all you need to do is roll it reverse way, so the paper will be automatically set. So in order to remove a bad habit or a craving, start encountering a new habit, good habit by that. So Swami says redirecting the senses to a good habit is the best possible scenario in terms of the overall senses. Now you may say, hey, there are 5 senses. How do I redirect all the senses? Swami says, out of all the senses, the most important are eyes and mouth. He says flaps are given by God to only these 2 senses, one for mouth and one for eyes. Eyes, you can obviously, you close with your eyelids. Flaps, obviously, you can close your mouth when it's not needed. And at this point, I want to just kind of let's listen to what Swami says with respect to how to control the senses. Why is it so essential? Why is it, that is a prerequisite, because how it affects the mind too. So let's listen from Swami on this one.
இந்த லகாவ் கையில நல்லா வச்சுக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா ஹார்ட் சக்தி புரிய போகிறது இல்லை. அந்த லகாவ் கொஞ்சம் விட்டாச்சுன்னா அந்த ஹார்ட் இப்படி வச்சிருக்கேன்னா கிருஷ்ணா இந்த மைண்டு பாடி ஒரு ரதம், ரதம்னா சேரி, பாடிக்கு ஒரு சேரி, அப்புறம் குணம் இருக்கிற ஃபைல், அதெல்லாம் ஹார்சஸ். என்ன குணம்? இயர், நோஸ், ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ಲೋಸು ಅದು ಗುಣ ಮಾಡುವ ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಶಬ್ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಶ ರೂಪರಸಗಳ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಾರ್ಸಸ್ இந்த ஹார்சஸ் எல்லாம் ஒன்றுக்கு போய்டு ஒரு வாட்டி டங்கெல்லாம் ஓடும் போடும் இது அது ஸ்வீட் கொடுத்துச்சுன்னா இன்னொரு வாட்டி அந்த ஹார்ட் ஓடும் இதுக்கு ஒரு லிமிட்டே இது இது ஒரு ஸ்மால் எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்ல 2 wives இருக்குன்னா ரொம்ப கஷ்டம் தெரியுமா தெரியாது ஒரு வைஃப் இருக்குனாலும் ரொம்ப கஷ்டம் அது தெரியுமா 2 wives ரொம்ப கஷ்டம் இப்போ என்னன்னா மைண்ட் 5 wives இருக்கு அதுக்கோசம் ரொம்ப கஷ்டம் அவருக்கு எப்போ அசாந்தியா இருக்கு மைண்ட் என்னத்துக்கு அசாந்தி என்ன ஒரு வைஃப் கிட்ட போன சப்தம் சம் டங்கு இந்த மாதிரி குருமா ஓடணும் இந்த மாதிரி சாம்பார் ஓடணும் இந்த மாதிரி பப்பு ஓடணும் இந்த மாதிரி வெஜிடபிள்ஸ் ஓடணும் அது இன்னும் டேஸ்ட் என்ன கேட்கும் கந்தம் அது வந்து இதுக்கு நல்ல சுகந்தமாக இருக்கணும் எல்லாம் அகரவச்சு ஓடணும் எல்லாம் நோட்டீஸ் எல்லாம் ஓடணும் எல்லாம் ஸ்மெல்ல இந்த ஒவ்வொன்று ஒரு மாதிரி கேட்டுக்கொண்டிருக்கு யாருக்கு என்ன வாங்கிட்டு வருது மைண்டுக்கு ரொம்ப அசால்ட் அவர்கிட்ட போ இந்த மாதிரி வாங்கிட்டு வந்தால் நீங்கள் கிட்ட பேசுகிறேன் இல்லைன்னா பேச மாட்டேன்னு சொல்கிறேன் இங்கே வாங்கிட்டு வந்தால் எங்களுக்கு பார்க்குறேன் இல்லைன்னா பார்க்க மாட்டேன் நீங்கள் போயிடும் மூஞ்சி அந்த மாதிரி சொல்லுங்கள் இந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும்போது இந்த 5 பேர் 5 டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் ஆஃப் இதெல்லாம் கொடுக்கும் இந்த மாதிரி சப்த ஸ்பர்ஷ ரூபம்.
So, as Swami says here, the 5 senses create so much of problems to the mind. And if we're just going to look at just 1 or 2 senses here and quickly through a small story, look at how, for eyes, right? Swami says eyes, you have eyelids, interestingly, but we don't use it properly. Swami gives a chinna katha which illustrates this. I'm sure many of you might have known this story, but it made a huge impact in our day-to-day lives, right? There was a sadhu, Swami says, he was on the banks of the river, a so-called sadhu. That's what Swami puts it. And he closes his eyes partially. He was sitting in the bank of a river and he was meditating. And he saw a silver vessel flow from, one end of the river to the other end of the river. And as he was meditating, he opened his eyes, closed his eyes, opened his eyes, and he couldn't control the silver vessel. His eyes fell on that. And you know what? The body followed it. And once the sense organ spots something, when the body follows it, trouble follows it. So he jumped into the river. As soon as he jumped into the river, he just thought, okay, he found it, and he caught hold of the silver vessel. He was super happy. Great, I got my silver vessel. And then happens that there's a huge current of water wave. And now at this point, he has to save his life. Otherwise, he'll be dead. On one hand, he was holding on the silver vessel. The other one, he was trying to get to the shore. And now he was so afraid that he couldn't even get to the shore. So at that time, he dropped the silver vessel, just went back to the shore, and he was crying. There was a real sadhu who walked by, and he said, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "I lost my silver vessel." And the real sadhu asked, "When was it yours?" It was just going left to right. You jumped on it just because your eyes saw it. You jumped on it. You painstakingly look at it. So Swami says this is man makes a flawed, mistaken relationship with the objects of the world. He says, first we painstakingly strive to possess them, right? And madly we wrestle to preserve them. Like, for example, we go buy the costly TV, car, phone, name it, right? And then once it drops, we just say, "Oh, I lost my phone." Wait a second. 5 days ago, the phone was in the store. The car was in the showroom. And interestingly, just because you bought it, and which is supposed to be, destroying feature, because anityam asukam lokam is what Swami says. Everything is supposed to perish. But the senses direct you to a wrong way of identifying that this is my object. So second one he talks about is control of tongue. And Swami, this one very importantly, he said, but the tongue has two functions, right? It's not just there's a sense of speech, there's a sense of taste. Now, with tongue, we can change from truth to untruth, reality to unreality, backbiting. We can eat everything. So Swami says it's so important. Tongue teaches you good habits, but we don't put that to the best use. So, for example, Swami says the tongue tells you whether the thing tastes bitter or sweet. That's it. It does not discriminate. All it tells you is that. So he says when the body is ill, you have to make sure you have less of sweet, eat nominally. And the second function that Swami talks about is obviously the speech, which everybody knows. I don't think we need to expand on that, where how to talk when necessary. How much do we need to? It's the good balance of how much we talk versus how much we should not talk. And thirdly, Swami says tongue has, everything. If you look at it, he says tongue stays within the limits. There are 32 teeth, Swami says, and how it maneuvers when it talks, it does not get hurt among the teeth. He says that's how you should be. He says the tongue teaches you a lot of lessons. And he states the tongue stays indoors. It never goes outside, right? He says also you should try to manage your own tasks by learning from the tongue. And Swami gives examples like that. It's so important that we learn from these ones. And in the interest of time, I wanted to make it also a practical exercise that this is something that I feel it's very important. What makes Swami happy is not the webinar that we talk, but the webinar that we all try to inculcate some practice or the other. So I listed the practice on the left, and this is just a sample, which has a weekly schedule. And again, it's just between you and Bhagwan, and however way you want to gauge this, because these are with respect to our tongue. And olden rishis and stuff like that, they specifically did maintain silence for one. In fact, I know of a friend whose father used to do entire Sunday Mauna Vratam, because it's so important to observe Mauna Vrata, to have some control on the speech and speak, all of these, right? So if you think your conscience says, yes, I did this, then in that case, then score a 1. If not, score a 0. You will see where you are at the end of a week, right? So it doesn't have to be, everything has to be 1, but if you take baby steps into some kind of a practice, Swami will do the rest. So I think with that, we will transition to the next one, which is Uparati.
Lovely, brother. So by now we have understood that mind control and sense control are a loop. The mind feeds into the senses feed the mind. But then once we are able to control these two through various practices that we just discussed, or any of the other practices that you all might be familiar and you might already be doing all those practices, then what happens? The mind and the senses will begin to rest in the self. They will begin to abide in the self. As a result of which, there is self-control, there is self-regulation, which will lead to self-satisfaction. And Swami said, self-confidence, of course, is the first step, and then self-satisfaction, which will further lead to self-sacrifice and self-realization. But then, how do we withdraw? What are those activities? How do we control those activities, or how do we withdraw? What activity should we withdraw our mind and our senses from? How do we know that? So there are different types of activities which we all engage in. Brother, can you please go back to the previous slide? So there is what is called as various activities we all engage in during this journey of life are divided into Nitya Karma, Naimittika Karma, Kamya Karma, Prayashchita Karma, and Nishiddha Karma. And Swami has said it's important that we engage in Nitya Karma and Naimittika Karma when we are on this spiritual path. So let us try to understand briefly what is this Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma is non-optional. They have to be carried out, no matter what. And they are also those karmas that do not bind you. They are those karmas that will help you to purify. Nitya karmas are a function of your existence. You exist as a part of this creation, so you have to perform those. And what are they? It is just like getting up in the morning, praying to the God, praying to your ancestors, praying to the rishis who gave us all this knowledge and prayers, then being very kind to all the plants and animals around you, Bhuta, all the Panchamahabhutas that are there around you, and then also praying to all our fellow beings, living in harmony with our fellow beings. It is just like you take bath and then you go to work. Wherever you are, it is important that you are in harmony with your surroundings. This is what Nitya Karma encompasses. Then what are Naimittika Karma? Naimittika Karmas are occasional duties, those turning points in your life that you can celebrate, as well as the turning points in the cosmic cycle that one has to celebrate. I'm sure you'll all agree with me when we say we follow either the solar calendar or the lunar calendar. So all the celebrations, the solstice, the equinoxes, festivals around this, worshipping all the gods and goddesses which are around these points. So those are the naimittika or the occasional duties. So Swami said it is very, very important that we indulge and we engage in these two. So there is no option but to engage in these two. Apart from that, of course, kamya karmas, all the worldly desires. Prayashchita karmas, atonement for the sins that we do. And nishiddha karmas are those karmas that we engage in, like cheating, lying, all those. So those three should be completely out of our list, and we should only engage in Nitya Karma, which is a function of our existence. Because you exist as a part of this creation, you have no option but to follow these. And Naimittika Karma, occasionally you follow them as you go through the year and then the cosmic cycle. Then there are also, previous slide please. Yes. Sometimes it's also hard to transcend duality, right? You're withdrawing, but then it's difficult to transcend duality as you go through this Nitya Karma and Naimittika Karma. But Swami says, when you're in this Uparati, you're practicing this, you have to transcend gender. I'm a lady. I may have difficulty having a male doctor or working with a male colleague. Then caste. I'm a Brahmin. It may be difficult for me to have my lunch with somebody else who is not a Brahmin. Ashrama. I'm in my adulthood. Will I get along with a young adult, a kid? Then clan. I belong to the Bharadwaja Gotra. So how is it? How do I adjust to others? And religion. I'm a Hindu. So all these are also embedded with our Nitya Karma and Naimittika Karma. So these all show up there. So are we able to transcend all these and withdraw from the worldly activities? Next slide. And Swami also says, as we go through this journey of Shama and Dama, by the way, Uparati is also called as Uparama. It can also be called as Uparama. So as we go through this, Swami also says, everything becomes God. And in this beautiful quote, Swami says, do not worship God as a picture, but all pictures become God. And in this discourse, he says, even the tumbler is God, even the microphone is God. So he goes on and on. Every trivial object becomes God. Next slide. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Swami also in many discourses says, yes, we are able to control the senses from going out. That's possible. Yes, that is a physical control, like how brother said, okay, close your eyes, close your mouth. Okay, I don't want to listen, plug your ears. That's possible. But then sometimes even that just somebody uttering that word, coffee, your inner senses begin to activate. Though there is no smell of coffee in the outward environment or the outer setting, you can still sense coffee through your nose, through your inner sense. You can still Imagine that you're standing in front of Starbucks. Your mouth can still feel the taste of coffee. Same thing if you love chocolate. I love chocolate. So that's why coffee and chocolate, common to most of us. Chocolate. The minute somebody says chocolate, yes, how it smells, I can feel it. I don't have to eat it, but I can feel it. So Swami says, and Krishna says, that you have to be able to withdraw, completely erase them from your mind and from your senses. Otherwise, you are a hypocrite. And this Krishna says in chapter 3, shloka number 6, if any of you want to refer to that. So Uparati is not withdrawal of your activities alone, but withdrawal of your senses into yourself. Next slide, brother. So this I've just summed up everything. Like it is mind control, sense control. Life becomes very simple, right? As you begin to withdraw yourself, life becomes very simple. Fewer things to take care of. Then we have to be able to transcend all the different dualities, and then the inquiry exploration begins. And then look at the world as a projection of the Atma. Uparati happens in two ways. It's either through discipline, like how brother mentioned and how Swami said, controlling the reins, controlling your mind, controlling those senses that draw out the horses. Or it can happen involuntarily, like how it happens in a tortoise or a turtle. The minute it sees some trouble, automatically, very gently, very softly, it just withdraws into the shell. So sense control, mind control, and this stage of Uparati can be achieved through these two. And the best representative is there in this mythological story, Ramayana, which all of us are familiar with. Dasharatha, he was able to control all the 10, the organs of perception, organs of action, is called Dasharatha. What happens then? When he unites with Kausalya, he perfects his skill. Kausalya represents perfection in skill. That is when Rama or consciousness is born. Over to you, brother. Let's continue with Titiksha.
This is interesting because the Sama and Dama, what it does is, if you look at how Swami holds that rein and he shows the horse picture, he does not say strangle the horse. Oh, you have to completely control. He says you have to, adjust the reins, which means when the horses tend to go astray, even in life, which is the balance that Swami emphasizes on. It's not like you go astray on one side or you completely leave without any reins, just that reins where it's necessary. Because we tend to always think, hey, Sama and Dama is all extremely go live in Himalayas. No. Swami says, be in the world, but let not the world absorb you directly. So with that, I think let's move to the next step, which is forbearance. Forbearance, we'll just dive on to just this particular slide, which is very close to me personally, because every time I read this, it gives me a very, very different meaning. And every day, depending on when I read it, it gives new meanings. So I'll read a portion of it. Swami says, fortitude is different from patience. Fortitude is not the same as tolerance. And he gives different words here, right? Tolerance is putting up with something, tolerating it, bearing it because you have no other choice. But Swami says that's not what I'm saying. He says having the capacity to overcome it, yet disregarding it, that is the highest spiritual discipline. Which means what Swami here refers to is, putting up boldly with opposites. And he says, not sway like pendulum. Oh, joy one time, grief one time. Oh, I was very joyful. Tomorrow I'm very grief-stricken. But Swami says, Sahana is different. Sahana is duality. Titiksha is beyond that. He says, when you have all the power, yet you don't act, that is forbearance. It's not like, oh, I have no other choice. Oh, now I'll tolerate it. That is not what Swami is talking about. Swami says, patience is the first step. And patience is not inaction. Patience means it is intensely active, but patiently wait. And I'll repeat again, right? Intensely active, be, going to do the job, but at the same time, patiently wait. It does not. So Titiksha is so important when you have when you're tolerant of everything, to face any circumstance without lamenting about it. Oh, why am I facing all the challenges? Why should you not face challenges? Why am I facing suffering? In fact, Swami gave a beautiful example between pain and suffering. Swami said pain is some destiny. What comes to you is pain. Nobody can stop that. But suffering is one's own choice, he said, which means I can decide whether I suffer or not. That's why if you look at very, very noble souls, they might have bodily problems, they might have all kinds of problems, but that's outwardly. Suffering, are they suffering? No. But do they have pain? Yes. So Swami distinguishes very clearly all of those natural things that happen to us and how to have forbearance. So he gives 3 steps. It's very important in our day-to-day lives, right? The first virtue is patience. The second virtue is fortitude, which is Titiksha. And let me give an example, right? As sister talked about Ramayana life, right? Let's take Rama as an example. Rama was a king. He was the most revered, and he was about to be coronated. The next day, suddenly his father says, "Now you have to go to forest." He had all the power, yet he obeyed, and he tolerated that. Isn't that not forbearance? Where he had powers to say no, but he did not. Let's take in our modern life. We think we have power against kids, family, and whatever. Let's say even in workplace, you are the superior and there are people working under. We can, let's say if somebody comes to you to interview, somebody at a junior level, we have the power to make sure, hey, he goes this way, that way. But you know what? You have to tolerate everything around us. It starts from family, right? It starts from kids. Only with this kind of firm determination that will help us to cultivate this virtue of sahanubhuti. That the forbearance is so important. Then you would think, as I was ruminating over this, I was thinking, Swami, then how do in the modern world, we all face criticism, right? Everybody says, hey, you said this, you said that. And I came across a beautiful clip of Swami, where he says, why do you have to worry about criticism? He gives a twofold mantra, and I thought it's so perfect. Because it's like a cookie cutter methodology. Start to use it, try it in your own lives. He says, 1, if you think they criticize the body or the Atma, he says, if they did scold or criticize the body, then he says that doesn't belong to you. Why do you worry? They are only helping you. Number 1. Number 2, if they think they are criticizing the Atma, then that's the same Atma resides in you and them. So which means by them criticizing you, they are criticizing themselves. So that is the level of Shama that Swami talks about, right? Is he criticizing the body or the Atma? It can be one or the two. So I thought forbearance is, it has to be practiced at some point, right? Because it's the highest virtue. Swami says this is the highest power, bearing everything. Not because you just tend to remain silent, but it is, you have to do actions, but at the same time, internally, you have to bear it. It's so important that I was thinking about how do we practice this, right, in our day-to-day lives. It applies to the modern world. Our tolerance window is so less these days. Suddenly, as a sister brought in the first slide, right? Oh, today is very hot. I cannot bear it. Oh my God, I just cannot bear this. It's so annoying. We're so quick to react, right? Because it's very cold. Oh, the bus didn't come. Oh, the train didn't come. Oh, this is very annoying. Oh, the pen. Oh, this computer, internet. We are very, very quick to complain. We are very quick to whine. We are very quick to react to situations. So instead, if we use in a practical word, forbearance has to start something at a lowest level in our day-to-day life. So let's take this. Let's take our own life. Can you think through a situation where am I very quick to react? Oh, no, this is good. Oh, this is very annoying. This is very frustrating. This is very, all of these complaints. Reflect on ourselves. So let's think through our own lives. Am I doing that? Number 2, do I complain the most in life? Do I do that? Because it's important, because Swami has given so much, yet we tend to complain. Those olden days, they had very limited things, and they, had their life in a very peaceful way. Now we have the most resources, yet we complain the most. Isn't that paradoxical? Next, can I bear things when things are in discomfort? What if this door does not work? What if this computer does not work? Oh my God, can I bear it? It is okay. Life runs on. It is not the end of the world. Because all of these lead, if I don't have forbearance, the first step is anger. Because again, our tolerance window is this much. So the goal of forbearance is to see how we can expand our tolerance to make sure we adjust with the surroundings. It's okay, right? Can I forgive people? It's okay, fine. You might hold on to it, but how quickly you do that? At the end of the day, if we can keep a note for ourselves, I think everybody in the call, right, starts with myself. So can we make sure we talk to Swami and tell him, Swami, can I not complain for one day, morning till night? In fact, when I told this to my son who's in school, and he asked me a question, Dad, is that okay if we complain in mind? So I said, this is interesting because it's so important that, some people, we're so used to complaining, oh my God, we get, we feel good about it, right? So I think this is the first step that we can try. And when we try it, you know what? Behind Swami is there. So if we make it a vow that I'm going to be one day, can I not complain? No matter what happens, I'm going to bear it, bear it, bear it, bear it. It's not end of the world. So if we do that, then it'll be great. So with that forbearance, that's when we start to move towards a very famous topic, right? Everybody knows what trust is, what faith is, what Shraddha is. Um, it's interesting. We do this very often, right? When it comes to the world, we'll say, "Oh yeah, Swami will take care. Don't worry." But when it comes to us, we say we know better. I think Swami has to do this way. We put all our expectations that we think if it's our lives, we feel like we know better than Swami. It's so important. Um, so I wanted to kind of go through two stories on this because everybody knows faith, the meaning of faith. So we're not going to dive deeper into the meaning of faith, but a couple of stories which really impacted my life. Many of you probably, I don't know if you know in this picture that you see on the left with Swami, this person called, his name is Rama Brahmam. He was a manager of the Vrindavan ashram. Swami put him as a manager. He was a caretaker of the entire Vrindavan ashram in the 60s and 70s. Excuse me. So this is an incident in Rama Brahmam's life. Rama Brahmam Garu was an implicit listener to what Swami says. And this happened in his life in the mid 60s. Swami said he was going to get his son married, Rama Brahmam's son married, and Swami agreed to perform that marriage, and all the parties arrived. Imagine this, in those days, all the brides' parties arrived, and just before the wedding, or a couple of days, few days before the wedding, Swami called Rama Brahmam and said, "Go tell the girl's side that the marriage is called off." And he said, "Okay, Swami." He walks to them, marriage is called off. So much of anger and resentment from the girl's side, needless to be, right? Because, hey, we made all the arrangements. What are you doing? They packed their things, they left. And the next day, Swami calls Rama Brahman and said his son had been bitten by a snake and he passes away. And within the next day, the girl's side people, everybody came rushing to Rama Brahman's place and said and thanked them because what a grand disaster that you saved us from. This is just a story, but it has three different components to it, which applies to our day-to-day life. Number one, Ram Brahman, when all the stakes are high, when everything is prepared, when it's, Swami taps the balloon like with a pin, and then completely the whole balloon thing. That's exactly how this happened. All the preparations are made, and Swami says, "Go call off." He did not ask why, Swami. He just did. Number one. Number two, he went to the girl's side, and everybody spit on him. Literally, the world says you are such a, you know, stupid guy, whatever it is, right? Because imagine this. He was not well received. He had to endure that. Number one, when the stakes are high, he did not ask why, Swami. Number two, the world did not like him, but he was fine with it because Swami was by his side. Number three, the problem did not end because his son passed away. So it was one after another after another. One, implicit obedience. Number two, the world was against Rama Brahman. Number three, calamity strikes again. In all these situations, I thought to myself, what a great example in his life. Because this is what faith is all about. Faith is not when things are going great. Yes, wow, how great Swami did. When things are not going well, how do we still listen to him? Another example, right? Anil Kumar sir, as you all know, this I heard through another, Sai brother, another student of Swami, which made a huge impact. One time, one of his Anil Kumar sir's family member passed away, and he had to go to the final rites, and all his family members were ready to go, and they were waiting for Anil Kumar sir. Anil Kumar sir didn't leave because Swami didn't tell him. So all the family members said, "Hey, he's God. Why don't you just ask him?" He said, "I will not ask him." And all the family members went. And this Sai brother asked Anil Kumar sir in a conversation, "Sir, you could have asked Swami. Swami was by your, next, he was like physically few feet away." And he gave something which impacted so much. He gave a few-fold mantra. One, he says, Anil Kumar said, "I believe Swami is God, and that's why I came to Puttaparthi." This means God is omnipresent and omnipotent, which means he knows everything. The fact that I have to go and ask him, that means I feel that he does not know, which means he's not God, which defies the purpose, which is contrary to the belief that he is not God. So such level of faith he had, where God is omnipresent. As Swami said, "I am Sahasrashi Rishapurusha" in the beginning of the slide. When these examples, what these show is, whatever we are, going through in life is perfect for our life. And imagine this, when Swami, every blade of grass would not move without his will. We all know that. But if something strikes us, some curveballs are thrown at us, imagine Swami is at the doorstep of that. Do you think he would be quiet? It has to pass by him, right? Before it hits you, which means he is watching it. Correct? If he is not doing anything, which means it has to take Swami's approval before it hits you. Correct? So, which means the worst trouble that has come to me, it has still taken Swami's approval. Whatever Swami approves, that means it's good for me. For that to happen, it comes by practice, Swami says. That faith is what, and Swami says, we have faith on newspaper, we have faith on an air pilot when we go on a plane, but we don't have faith on the most revered chancellor of the universe who takes care of everything around us. So the first thing is, in order to have that level of faith, the first thing is affection that we need to have, and the acceptance, right? And this is a quadrant that it's very near and dear. Every time I measure myself, there's a 2x2 quadrant, if you imagine, faith and acceptance, right? So let's see, with no faith and no acceptance, your life is filled with stress, worry, and anxiety. Nobody can save us. When you have faith and you don't have acceptance, you're on the fence. Because what use of is that faith if you don't have acceptance what he gives? If you have no faith but you have acceptance, that's great. If you have no faith but you have acceptance completely, That's great. Faith and acceptance go together. So for, when you think about his life, right, for every issue in life, he knows he loves, he can solve any problem, but if he chooses to keep quiet, which means he not that he does not know, but we need to learn to accept this is the best situation for me. As easier as it is said, but it is that acceptance that makes us also peaceful. Because for some reason, Professor Kasturi's life was like that. His life was filled with problems, but the faith that he had in Bhagwan, when things are not going well, his wife was bedridden, his son passed away, his daughter had a bad marriage. With all of this, he never asked one word to Swami. He says, whatever Swami has kept, this is the best thing for me in my life. What faith should it take? So with that, I think I'm going to skip this story. This is another Chinnakatha, but in the interest of time, I think I'll end with this one on faith, right? There are people who can say, you know what, grant me this, grant me that. Swami has said this, you have to ask one or the other, because without asking, leaving me halfway is no devotion at all. Swami says, ask this or that. Then the next step, Draupadi's case, demand with faith. Draupadi said, Krishna, come and save me. Gajendra Moksham. Hey, I'm stuck. Lord Narayana came. But also there is a phase where whatever you give, Swami, I will take that, is the acceptance phase. We have to start with asking to no asking. And it is the journey, and we know where we are. And our prayer to Swami is, he knows the best how to handle it, but we need to know how to move from one end of asking every day to accept, Swami, you know the plan best, how needs to be done. You take care of it. As much as life poses problems, it is his will and his love alone. He will know the best thing for us, and that'll pay more and more dividends for us. So with that, we will move to Samadhana, sister.
Riding on the Rama Brahman wave, which Brother Subbu alluded to, reminds me of one more story of Rama Brahman's faith in Bhagavan. So once Swami told Rama Brahman that your wife is too loud. She talks very loudly and it is disturbing me. Next day, Rama Brahman dispatches his wife to the village. Says, go away from here, because Swami commented like this. Week goes by, 2 weeks go by, a month goes by. Rama Brahman doesn't talk about his wife. Swami asked him, where did she go? Swami sent her to the village. Why? Because she was disturbing. No, you have to bring her back. Rama Brahman still doesn't bring her back. But then Swami threatens, if you don't bring her back, I'm going to send you out. So that was when Rama Brahman goes to the village and brings his wife back to Bangalore. So going on Samadhana, Swami said, next slide, brother. Samadhana is perfect equanimity. Imagine Sama, Dama, Uparama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha. We arrive at that place where we are equipoised, equal-minded, so balanced in everything we do. And Swami says it should be like a flame in a windless room. Next slide, brother. Samadhana also means, that does not mean that we are not self-satisfied. We are self-satisfied during Samadhana, and there is also a lot of contentment. We are equal-minded, being contented and being self-satisfied in that space. Next slide, brother. And in this, Swami beautifully summarizes all the sadhana chatushtayam, including the Shat Sampathi, and he says, this is what you have to land at is Samadhana, Viveka, Vairagya, and all the Shat Sampathi come to Samadhana. Next slide, brother. So how was Samadhana displayed by Mirabai? I'm sure all of you know the story. She's a royal princess who had completely immersed herself in Krishna consciousness, completely merged with Krishna. And then she was thought to be a disgrace by the royal family. And then they wanted to get rid of her. They wanted to kill her. So what did they do? So they gave her nectar, which was actually poison. Nectar was actually poison, and then they give it to her. She did not care. She was so equal-minded. Be it nectar, be it poison, I'm going to drink it. It was Charanamrit, as they call in Hindi. And then she just drank it, but nothing happened to her. That was the equal-mindedness and equanimity with which she consumed whatever was given to her. The next story is about Vishnu Sharma. Vishnu Sharma was a disciple of Adi Shankara. And once Adi Shankara initiated him into monkhood, Adi Shankara named him as Sanandana. He was a very brilliant student, and Adi Shankara liked him. To the surprise of the others, they did not like Sanandana. And then they thought that the master is biased towards Vishnu Sharma or Sanandana. So Adi Shankara wanted to show the other disciples the difference between Vishnu Sharma and those that were envious of Vishnu Sharma. So one day, Adi Shankara was on one bank of the river Ganges, and all the disciples were on the other bank. And then he calls out to them, "Come here. Everybody come up to the waters." Everybody stops there because there is no boat to take them across the Ganges to the master. However, Vishnu Sharma, without a thought, be it water, be it sand, I have to walk and get to my master. That was the spiritual goal. And so, because of that, Mother Ganges has lotuses as stepping stones for Sanandana, and then Adi Shankara renames him as Padmapada. So that's how he gets that name, Padmapada, because he's stepped on Padma, which is lotus, and then reaches the master. And let's go to the summary of what we just presented in this webinar. Shama, there is mind control, focus is on the mind. Dama is on the senses. Uparati is withdrawal from the activities, lifestyle engagements. Titiksha, forbearance, patience, body, emotions. Shraddha is having that focus, having that faith and acceptance. And then Samadhana is equanimity. Ramakrishna always explains very difficult spiritual concepts with very simple examples. He said, the mind is like the milk. It is sattvic, it is pure, it is white, it is blemishless. And neuroscience also has said this. There are research articles that have said that human mind, human brain is wired for morality. It is wired to be ethical. Let me share a small instance. So we had national conference in Dallas, and there was this flag procession that was going on, and each state was being called with its respective flag. And there was this little girl that was sitting next to me. And as each state was being called, only few people were clapping from the audience. This child asked me, why are only few people clapping for each of the states? I replied, probably they live in that state or they belong to that state. And then my curiosity, I asked this little child, which state do you belong to? And she said, America. So we all have that oneness, that unity, that equal-mindedness within us. But as we grow older, we get polluted. So it's good to go back to that. So the mind is so pure. And Ramakrishna compared that pure mind to the worldliness, which he said is the water. So if this mind goes through the senses, what happens? It gets diluted, right? The milk gets diluted. And then you go into the Arishad Vargas, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. But then, if you add little Viveka, Vairagya, Shama, Dama, Uparati, the mind becomes like a curd, little more stable. Then you apply Titiksha and Shraddha and churn this curd, you get butter. So the mind has to be like that butter. Now, even if this butter goes into the external world, which is water, it floats on that. So let's all pray to Bhagavan that he churns our mind and then makes it like the butter. And then we elevate ourselves to the level of devotees. April 2nd, 1963, Swami says that I always address you as Prema Swarupulara, Divyatma Swarupulara, Atma Swarupulara. I never address you as Bhaktulara. Why? Because you come to me and you ask me, I want car, I want my daughter to be married, I want to get these degrees. You never ask for me. The day you ask for me, I will address you as Bhaktulara. So let's pray to Bhagavan that we elevate ourselves to that level, and then there will be a day when he will call us Bhaktulara. Jai Sai Ram.
And we wanted to end this session again with Bhagwan's words. Just before that, I know this is the 100th year of Bhagwan's advent, and across the world there are so many, many, many events planned and so on and so forth. But what's most important for Swami is the transformation within us. If we are a better version than yesterday, at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, that is exactly what Swami wants. Because events are great, but at the same time, if we remember one value, one virtue that we say, Swami, I will take one small thing. And in this discourse, in this clip, Swami says how he emphasizes how we should take it up. Because as sister said, for him to call us like that, we should also make our actions worthy. It is our effort, because our effort and his grace, both of them combine together to make this worthwhile. But in order to make that, let's see the determination of how Swami talks about how we should indulge in any of these messages, any of these Satya Dharma Shanti Prema, or any of the Shat Sampathis. These are all, one thing is to hear, the other thing is to practice. Let's hear from Bhagwan on this.
కానీ చాలా మంది ప్రయత్నిస్తామంటాం. ట్రై అంటే డ్రై అయిపోతుంది. మస్ట్ డూ, చేసే తీరాలి మనం. Most of the people say, we'll try. If you go on trying like that, you go dry. మనం ఏ ఒక్క విషయానికి కూడా మనం ప్రయత్నిస్తాం అనేటువంటి ఏమాత్రమూ మనం చెప్పకూడదు. అది ఒక బలహీనం. We should never say that we will try for anything at all. It is a weakness. మీరు చాలా మంది కనిపెట్టారో లేదో. Some of you might have స్వామి ఏది చెప్పినా ఇది చేస్తా చెయ్యను అని గట్టితంగా చెప్తాడు, కానీ చూస్తా అనేటువంటిది నా నుంచి రానే రాదు. You might have watched. The Swami never just tells that I will see, I will do it or I don't do it. My life is my message. నన్ను అనుసరించండి. That is why my life is my message. మేము చేస్తాం అనేటువంటి ఒక దృఢమైనటువంటి ఒక వాగ్దానం చేయాలి. You should declare that you will do it. ఎవరి కోసం? For who are you doing it? నీ కోసమే. For yourself. కనుకనే ప్రతి ఒక్క విషయం నందు కూడా ఈ విధమైనటువంటి దీక్షను మనం పట్టినప్పుడే కార్యాన్ని ఫలింపచేసుకుంటాం. ఆ విశ్వాసం లేకపోతే శ్వాసం లేనటువంటి శవమే. Without that faith, you are a person without life breath.
So what else do we need? What more confidence do we need when Swami is with us and he says, do it with this level of determination? And as Swami says, life without Sai is a hopeless end. Life with Sai is an endless hope. And with that, we want to end with how we take one step towards you, Bhagwan, you will take 100 towards us. With that prayer, our effort, we pray that our efforts should multiply towards you in realizing your love and in realizing the oneness that we talked about. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Shri Saram, everyone. My name is Brother Rish, and I'll be leading the question and answer session. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Brother Subramanian and Sister Lakshmi again for another wonderful presentation. Very insightful, and personally, I loved how you were able to break down each of the 6 qualities. So thank you so much. So we'll move on to the questions. So our first question is, I understand the importance of faith and acceptance when something bad or unexpected happens, but how do we continue to stay positive and move forward afterwards? Yeah, either of you can start, or I know Brother Subramanian, you talked about this quality specifically, so if you like, you can start as well.
So sorry, I just wanted to understand the question.
Sure.
How do you repeat that, please? Sorry.
Sure, I can repeat the question. I understand the importance of faith and acceptance when something bad or unexpected happens, but how do we continue to stay positive and move forward afterwards?
I yeah, I think the positivity comes from the stem of that love or faith that we have in him, right? Because the faith cannot happen overnight. And if we look at it, is there one person that we have faith 100% in anybody in the world? We don't have 100% faith on anybody. For that to develop, the first step is, Swami says, that affection towards him. When we have that affection, then the positivity automatically comes because we know that it is for our best interests. And unless we are in the ROI world, right? Because everything we want to see the returns. What is that? But what these unseen things in our lives, we won't see it now. And I'll give a very small example, and I'll make it very quick. I applied for a job interview in a place called Denver in US. And I had gone to an interview, and I really did extremely well. And I thought I would get that job. And I was so hoping that I will get the job because in my mind, I thought this is the best thing for me. And I prayed for the job. And a few days later, I was told that I didn't, they rejected me. And I was so upset with Swami that, Swami, why did you do this to me? Because, yeah, one thing is faith and acceptance, but I cannot stay positive because I have to appear for the next interview. And it feels so dejected. Guess what? 1 year passed by, 2 years passed by. I went to another company for interview. I moved to a job in Arizona. And when I joined that job, there's a person from this Denver office who moved into this office, and he said, I'm glad you didn't join that because 6 months down the lane, that whole office was shut out. And little did I realize at that time, but to your point, I couldn't be positive at that time, but the gains we didn't know. When Swami decides something, he's not going to make it very clear to you and say, this is why you're not doing this. Because no, everything is step by step. But if we don't have that trust, yes, the positivity comes later, but that faith has to start. Our own acceptance starts, then you'll see the demand, thing blossom more. But at that time, I didn't know that. So the positivity comes by experience. When you know that, oh my gosh, Swami, you did great, then the faith even improves more because I know that you did in the best interest. At that time, I didn't realize it. But this is just an example of how to keep positivity.
Thank you, Brother Subramanian. Sister Lakshmi, would you like to add anything to the question?
Yeah, kind of faith it's a slow process. Spirituality itself is such a slow process, brother. So another angle that I would add here is you have to kind of self-audit yourself in terms of frequency, intensity, and recovery. You know, immediate reaction may be like, oh, why did this happen to me? But then gradually developing that positivity, working on yourself, that frequency will decrease, that intensity will decrease, and then recovery period will be faster. Saira.
Perfect. Thank you, Sister Lakshmi. Good thing that you mentioned breathing techniques. Our next question is also about that. So, which one of the three breathing techniques mentioned here, so Nadi Shodhana, Pranayama, Brahmamari breathing, and Ujjayi breathing, tends to be more beneficial, or is it possible that all three are beneficial?
Definitely, all three are beneficial. Breathing techniques are a lot. There are other like Bhastrika, Kapalbhati, Anmol, Vinmol, so many. But these three breathing techniques are the ones that will slow down the breath. Slowing down the breath will slow down the mind, which means the mind will be less agitated, less restless. So these are the three calming breathing techniques, and all three are equally powerful.
Thank you, Sister Lakshmi. Brother Subramanian, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I didn't have it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question. So, Sister Lakshmi, I believe you spoke about this as well regarding breathing techniques when we have to dot the day throughout. But obviously, as important as that is, people often say, I am busy, right? They'll say that is so great, but I am busy. So, how do you have any tips or advice on how we can dot the day with pranayama and namasmarana, especially in the afternoon times during work or school days?
Yes, definitely. What we can do is, as I said, dot the days in the sense, I mean, it has to be an effort. You want these techniques to be impactful throughout the day. It means you have to put in some effort. It's not going to be easy. So we'll have to find those times where we feel really drowsy or we feel really low or something. Probably you can pick those times. And personally, what I would say is like maybe start with timing every 2 hours or every 3 hours. You just have to set the alarm and then do it based on your convenience. You may be working, you come to a parking lot and do it, or take a break from lunch and do it, however way it suits you. And then sometimes it also happens that, okay, after 2 hours, I'm going to take a break and do my namasmarana or pranayama technique. Suddenly the boss calls me. What should I do at that time? Do I get agitated? Do I get irritated? No. That time we will have to kind of tune and be calm and say, oh, this is what Swami wants me to do, because that can also happen. Like for example, I do my morning prayers and then I have my grandson. There would be days when, he would get up and he would shout, Amama, come here. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that now. Then I said, no, he is a form of God. I'm going to be helping him brush his teeth. I'm going to help him wear the dress, take him to school. So that's the way you will have to just change, because it depends on you whether you want this to be a mechanical exercise or a transformative practice. Saira.
Perfect.
Yeah, I just want to just add one thing, right? Imagine in Swami's, many of you have been to Puttaparthi. Have you ever seen Swami cancel bhajans just because, we cannot do it today. Today is a national holiday.
No.
Does it happen anywhere, whether it rains or shines, right? So that is the commitment when Bhagwan has towards us. So as sister mentioned, right, it is an effort, it is a date with Swami. If you look at it that way, you will fall in love with so there are practices that certain things that I still hold dear, and no matter what happens, rain or shines, it is a conviction within myself that I do. Whether I'm traveling in the flight, I will do that. So it is, after a while, it becomes your second nature, right? Once it becomes that you cannot even stop it if you want to. Until that point, that effort has to be there. And once you do that, then again, it's not based on the outcome, with no expectation. You just do it for the sake of doing it. And no, if you look at the olden days, nobody looked at outcome. Okay, what is my outcome if I do 100 times this? No, they will keep doing it because the nama ruchi is important. Pranayama means they find that happiness. In fact, the way Swami even talked about the breathing techniques, he showed how to inhale, exhale, exact quantity, all of this duration he gave. And he mentioned this, it's so important because, as sister said, it calms your mind. When he has this big of a dividend, why wouldn't we do it? So just wanted to add to that. So
Yeah, and more to the breathing techniques, you can read Dhyana Vahini, where Swami gives exact proportion. How much inhaling, how to exhale, and all that for better understanding.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both. And thank you again also, Sis Lakshmi, for that book reference. So I think that'll help many of the devotees for sure. So thank you so much. Our next question. So, Brother Subramanian, I think this is referring to your 2x2 matrix that you had for faith and acceptance. So one devotee was asking, if we have acceptance on outcome, how is it that it is fine when there is no faith? So I think this is referring to that one quadrant where you had the ding, ding, ding for no faith, but yes, for acceptance.
so what I meant to show that was faith equals acceptance. If you have no faith, it does not matter. As long as you can accept what he gives, that is good. On a paper, if you write, Swami, I will accept everything you give me, you don't need to have faith. That acceptance itself, because that stems out of your love for God. Whatever the outcome, Swami, I will take it. That is faith. Because faith and acceptance are not two different components. In fact, if you have acceptance, that trumps over everything. Because once you have acceptance, which means because you feel like everything that comes to me, it is not past Swami. You know that you accept, good, bad. Somebody calls me God, great. Somebody calls me dog, great. But I'm still doing my job. The outcome, if you are perfectly tuned with that outcome, in every outcome that you get, if you're accepting it, great. So that's why the faith is at that point, the acceptance takes more precedence. That's the idea behind that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for elaborating, Brother Subramania. Sister Lakshmi, is there anything you would like to add to the question?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Our next question. So I think this is regarding the topic of sense control. So I think you both beautifully talked about the five senses. So sight, hearing, touch, smell. But I think Swami also talks about the other five senses, the five senses of action, I believe they're called, right? The hands, legs, reproduction, excretion. So does Swami have any tips on how to properly use or control these senses?
Sister, you want to go first, or you want me to go? Okay. So, so every time, as Swami says, right, these sense of, for example, your eyes see, in the example of the sadhu, the eyes saw it, as long as your body does not follow those. So Swami says, if an eye sees it and takes to the mind, and unfortunately, our body follows action, which are all the sense organs of action. As long as you separate what your eyes see, this is where at the source we control from these senses of like eyes, ear, mouth. If we restrict that, then the organs of action won't follow it. If you take enough care that, let's say, for example, a thought comes in, or you see something like a silver vessel, you ensure that your body does not go past it. Your hands do not jump into that action. Your legs don't follow. And in fact, in Tamil, I'm reminded of a movie song where I don't know how many of you know Tamil here, right? Kan pona pokile, kal pogalama, kal pona pokile, manam pogalama. So there is a song which means wherever your eyes go, your legs should not go. It is so important because that's where your organs of like eyes, ears, if you restrict there, then you're good to space it out between the organs of action as well. So
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brother Subramanian. Sister Lakshmi, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, though we think, like there are five senses of action, five senses of perception, right? That's why you have 10.
Mhm.
There are actually the organs, and these are actually controlled by other three inner senses. For example, hunger. Which organ tells you? You sense hunger, right? You have to go to the bathroom. You have to use. It's a sensation. It's a vibration within you. So there are other senses: vestibular, proprioception, and interoception. These are minor senses that aid these senses. However, with mind control and then with sense control exercises, even these will come into some kind of a control, and that's how you work on them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sister Lakshmi. So I think our next question goes back to Sama. So I think we've talked about some examples of Sama as well. But I think this devotee is wondering about how do you maintain Sama under severe pressure? So like, for example, a work emergency or a family emergency. I know we've talked about some stories today, but maybe if you could share your thoughts and insights on that as well.
Watch your thoughts. Because whenever you're faced with an emergency, the first thing is watch your thoughts. The minute you begin to watch your thoughts, you become aware. Even you can try it right now. Watch your thoughts, the mind calms down. When the mind calms down, intellect begins to act. You pause, intellect begins to shine. And that's how you deal with emergencies. And all of us will face, right? Life is always not so easy, and it can be anything. So it is always good to pause. You don't have to react, but you have to respond. And then so when you are thinking about it, that's when intellect will shine, and then Swami will come, and then he will. That's how I've been doing. It takes a lot of practice, but it can be done. Heaven will not fall. He is going to take care. Again, it's a combination of Shama as well as Shraddha and faith together. Saira.
And just wanted to add to that, right? What Sister beautifully put it. If you look at a 100-meter dash race, right? It's only 100 meters. But do you know how long do they train that for? For years. It's only 100 meters they run. So
Right.
emergencies, you will not, you cannot put immediately, yes, all of these in place. That requires practice, constant practice, so that at the time of emergency, this will be helpful. This is what Swami was repeatedly saying, because you don't know when those emergencies will come. Please start practicing, please start because at that time, your mind may not be matured, because with this Sama, you can control your senses, Dama, and you can have your Uparati withdraw. All of this takes all of the steps that we practice, right? It is important we do this for 100 meters dash. They would be doing for 10 years and then they will win. But we only look at the win, where, unfortunately, the winner at the, oh, yeah, he did it in 9.8 seconds. Great, fine. But he took 9 years for that, right? We don't never look at that. So it's important that we put in that time. And as Sister said, Swami is bound to help us because he says, you take steps, I will come and help you, but we are not trusting that. So anyway, just wanted to add to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Subramanian. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sister Lakshmi, as well. The next question, I think, so a devotee was wondering, can you speak further about the benefits of Mauna rhythm and how it helps us control the tongue in the long term? Brother Subramanian, I think you touched on this earlier, so maybe if you like, I can start with you.
Yeah. I think I remember this is one of my friend's dad who used to do, and this is upon Swami's instruction, the entire day on a Sunday where he doesn't have to go to work, they'll intentionally be doing Maunavrata. And what it does is there's Mano Maunam, Vak Maunam, and Maha Maunam. There are three different steps there. First is Vak Maunam is in your own mouth, right? Mano Maunam is your calming of mind. Maha Maunam is completely. There's a step by step. So if we start somewhere, because by also us, not talking for some time, you know, even for us it'll help, and also for our family members also it'll help by us not talking more. So we have to imagine it's important for our own purposes also, because what it does is, especially, I'll give an example. Our thoughts travel super fast with like blazing speed every second. Oh, this. But unfortunately, our words tend to catch up to those mind progression. It's very hard. And in that process, we fall. What this control over the tongue with limited speech, what it does over a period of time is, when somebody asks you something, you take that pause. And it is not an artificial pause. It is a natural pause. By restricting your mouth, by calming your mind, you will not be quick to jump for a response. It comes over training. And what that helps, oh, I should not have said what I had said. You will not encounter that. As Sister said, it calms your mind. But by having control over that silence for 1 hour or one day, over several months, years, you will have that clarity in thought and steadiness in what you respond, and not jump to speak fastly. Oh, I did not mean this. Oh, I meant something else. Oh, I spoke this. All of these pitfalls we fall because our mind is super fast. We are always catching up. Oh, my mouth has to catch up. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Brother Subramanian. Sister Lakshmi, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, sure. It is from silence everything was born. Everything was born. Silence is more powerful than speech. That's why Ramana Maharshi taught only through silence. You ask him a question, he just sits quiet and then quiet for half hour, 1 hour, and then he'll ask you, did you understand what I said? So just like how brother said, thoughts can be plenty and only a few words can summarize your thought. But if you're transpiring to thought, it's vast. That's one thing. And whenever we want to talk, Swami said there are two things you have to ask yourself. Do I need to talk? And if I talk, will I add more value to a given situation? So this can be your barometer, whether you should talk or not talk. Saira.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sister Lakshmi, for also providing those two questions as well to reflect on. I think that'll help as well. The next question, so I think this refers to Brother Subramanian, your exercise on practicing forbearance. So thank you again for giving such a practical exercise. But for those who, I guess, who are still finding difficulty in going one day without complaining, or even one day without getting angry, any tips for them on how they can improve that and be able to go further without complaining or getting angry quickly?
So again, I'm in the path also. It's interesting. Before I put that, I told Swami a couple of weeks ago, Swami, please ensure that, whenever you make a promise to Swami, you have to be very careful, because he will ensure that he'll put you to task also. And believe it or not, in all honesty to Swami, the day I promised, I had something huge at work. And when I came home, I could not stop complaining to my wife to say, oh, this happened, that happened. I felt terrible. But I said, I did not lose confidence. I said, Swami, I'm always ek pag aage, do pag piche guy, which means one step forward, two steps backward. So I'm in that process. And there is no tips at this. We all know it's a simple English that forbearance, the tolerance window, that I know what I need to expand, and every one of us. So I think if we make that conscious attempt, right? Okay, today, oh, I'm feeling like being complaining. Okay, restrict that. If you complain 10 times, restrict it to 9, restrict it to 8, because again, you're not trying to make 10 to 0, but one single day, or take even half a day, whatever that you and Swami had think, right, aligned to. If we start there and say, Swami, I'm trying this, and see the difference, and you will find super happiness inside you, because you are perfectly in peace with what is happening. That does not mean you're enduring everything. Enduring, but still continuing action. Intensely active, but patiently wait. It's okay, Swami. This is, unbearable. It's okay. Swami gave darshan when he had fracture. He even the last few days, he bared everything. He bore everything, and then he still came out for darshan without showing anything. When the Lord of the universe can bear everything, why can't we? Right? There are many, many examples like that. People, the bearing part is so important, because that is your first attribute of spirituality. Because if we start to complain for every little thing, we will never proceed to the next step. So from a tips perspective, just be at it, keep doing constantly, because we will go over the hump one fine day. So, Sairam.
Thank you, Brother Subramanian. Thank you so much. Sister Lakshmi, do you have any tips to help those who...
I can only remember one thing, Harish, one of the interviews, Swami said, as soon as you get angry, first thing is drink water. And nowadays we all carry water bottles, right? So that's one way of controlling anger, because anger is a short circuit. So much of spirituality will be drained in even a few minutes of anger. That's what Swami has said. So anger is the first one we should try to control. Saira.
Thank you so much, Sister Lakshmi. I think those are all our questions for today. I'm just going to check the chat one more time.
Thank you, Brother Harish. You navigated it so well.
I know. You're so sweet. You have a talent. You have a skill for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Swami works through me, so that's how I view it. So he, like you said, only a blade of grass cannot move without his will. So that's how I view all of this. Thank you so much. Yes, so that was our last question of the day. So those are all the questions for this session. Again, thank you so much, Brother Subramanian and Sister Lakshmi, for your wonderful presentation and for answering all the questions. I will turn it back over to the MCs and the national team for closing remarks.
Thank you, Brother Harish. Spectacular as ever. My most loving pranams to our Divine Chancellor, Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. On behalf of the National Devotional Team, firstly and most importantly, I would like to thank our Divine Lord. Without His grace, this spectacular evening could not take place. It is only through his grace and love that such wonderful discussions can be presented to devotees throughout Canada and the rest of the world. So thank you, Bhagwan. Please inspire us for more of these sessions. Thereafter, can I please thank our national president, Brother Shiva, for his constant support and participation at these events. He's a very busy man, so thank you, brother. Now, to our spectacular, I won't say guests, but inspirers of love and devotion, Brother Subramanian and Sister Lakshmi. You have left us once again speechless with your thoughts, your words of wisdom that Bhagwan has put into your minds this evening, your dedication for research of each topic that we have presented to you, not only in this presentation, but even our part one, were truly spectacular. So thank you, and thank you. And don't forget, we still have part 3 to be presented. So we will not let you leave that quickly. Now, Brother Harish, all the office bearers who supported this program this evening, the technical team, without your technical support, we cannot host these programs. So bravo to you all. Continue your selfless service to Bhagwan. Let us make our tech spectacular, the best of the best, which you all are, and let Bhagwan work through us in all our deeds. So on behalf of the National Devotional Team, we thank you all for participating this evening. Please share this presentation when we post it on YouTube so other devotees can be inspired by the spectacular that we have witnessed this evening. Jai Sai Ram, we will now offer Aarti to our beloved Bhagavan.
जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशि वदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलटिका आश्रित कल्पलटिका आपदान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे मात पिता गुरुदैवम् मरि अंतयु नीवे स्वामी मरि अंतयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्राशयन ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल हारति अंधको मंगल आरती अंध को मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ